Yes, we can hear you now.
Good. Okay, are all board members here?
Yes, we're ready.
What time is it? Ready to start or?
Yes.
We'll bring this meeting to order. Want to take a roll call?
Okay, Chairman Nelson,
Here.
Vice Chair Short,
Here.
Director Erler,
Here.
Director Gregorio,
Here.
and Director Kelly said that he is unable to make it.
Okay, Joe, would you like to lead the pledge of allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Okay. Okay. Do we have any of the public participation? Anyone out there?
I'm just sharing the screen briefly for anyone that needs to see the phone number. And it looks like we have a hand raised, so we will go to that now.
And I just want to clarify, this is public participation for items not on the agenda.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the timer and then we will let Roger get one start. One moment.
Okay, are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I know I can hear it. Okay. Am I in public comments and you're asking me to start?
If you got something to say.
Yes,
Yep.
I just want to know if I'm saying it now or during the agendized item of the vote recount. When will you have a public comment during that particular area? Because that's what I'm calling, that's what most of my comments and questions are regarding, rather than just a general subject matter.
That's item 3.1 in the agenda, so you'll be able to speak on that when we get to that item if you choose.
Okay, so it is the item in question. Okay, so thank you for starting like in 3 minutes right now. So I actually want to start with 3 questions, and I'd appreciate your not charging these questions to my time frame, but then answering them after I get off. So question number 1 was, is the protocol for the second election with weighted ballots identical to the protocol of the first election back in October? Has that been added, or is it the same as how the first election was conducted? That's question number 1.
A little bit. I'm in a business meeting. Okay.
Okay. Question number 2. The collection process for those who utilize 9/11 services, 911 services, has this group disclosed any information with regard to how the calls can be charged back to the user who uses the 9/11 service to ameliorate or mitigate some of the costs associated with this? And that has to do with, I've heard that it's very difficult, but I haven't heard that you actually are using this or taking the 9/11 911 services seriously in seeking compensation, payback, remuneration for the services. Okay, that's question number 2. Question number 3 actually involves the actual cost of both elections, and I keep hearing different numbers. I've heard that the second election was 21,000. First election and the second election together are 141,000. So that having been said, what are the costs associated to the public for the hosting of both of these elections? Now, somewhere during this and after I make my comments with regard to how you're going to proceed on this recount, now that you have a second vote, I'm going to ask you to address those answers in clear language so the public understands, because we are getting these calls and we're having difficulty trying to find out the answers to these very important questions. Now, with regard to the comments that I have, and again, the discovery of another vote, it must be said that the error in question was a human error. There's no chicanery. There's no tricking of adding another ballot. This was simply, and I was there, none of you in this room were at that meeting when we did this count. I am nothing but impressed with the way the bean counters worked, but somehow, some way, another vote was determined, and based on my observations, this vote will and could, and it probably will change the election results based on the emphasis on what I can only term as a difficult process to understand. I am of the opinion that the Crescent Fire Protection District should accept the results of this election, of the losing this, and sit down with an ad hoc committee, which I would gladly volunteer my services, and I'm hoping some other people will from the public, so that we can get a fair and equitable result, not one that's clouded in misunderstandings and hardball politics. We know who you are if you don't vote along with this, the kinds of threats that existed during the first election. And I think it would be to the best interests of all parties involved is to accept the result, and then immediately after this, come to this group and let's get a fair and equitable arrangement or election process that you don't have to be or take a college course to figure out how to weigh these votes. I'm told that there's no precedent for this, except I think there was one election in Klamath many years ago where they tried to do it this way, and the result is one individual controlled all of the votes with this ownership parcels. Clearly, this is not fair, and it should be seriously reconsidered, is to have a one man, one vote, and then let's get to the issue of how we can mitigate some of these costs that are hurting hurting the people who support us. And as my time is moving down, I will say this to you: you have the current protocol is an unfair, uneven playing field, and it should seriously be reconsidered and do this thing the right way. We are here to help. That's my comments. I appreciate the answers to my questions.
Thank you. Chief, would you like to, well, we've got to get into item 3.1, which we haven't really said that yet. So 3.1 is receive unofficial ballot tabulation results for benefit assessment and consider requesting a recount be completed by the Del Norte County Elections Office. Recommendation, receive staff report.
All right, Board Chair Nelson. So the staff report. So the background: on June 14th, 2021, the Crescent Fire Protection District Board held a public hearing which marked the end of the voting period for the proposed fire protection and emergency response services benefit assessment, which would fund the services and improvements included in the Crescent City Fire and Rescue's 10-year financial master plan adopted in November 2019. The 10-year financial master plan identifies priority actions and funding needed to create a sustainable fire department, including expanding volunteer staffing programs, apparatus and equipment replacement, volunteer recruitment training, and increased administrative capacity, with the goal of aligning its core programs and services with the needs of the community so as to not overserve and, most importantly, not underserve those needs. In absence of additional funding, it is estimated that the Crescent Fire Protection District would exhaust its limited reserve funds within a 2 to 3 year period while trying to maintain the current level of service that residents have come to expect. The assessment requires majority approval by property owners, with ballots weighted based on the relative special benefit to a property in relation to a single-family home, the type of property, and its size. Ballots were mailed 45 days in advance of the hearing to property owners within the district boundaries that would be subject to this assessment based on the most recent county records. Property owners that would not be assessed, including undeveloped parcels, were not mailed ballots. Each ballot included the total assessment proposed for the owner's particular parcel and a summary of the procedure applicable to the completion, return, and location of the public hearing. Individuals who own more than one property within Crescent Fire Protection District that would be assessed were mailed one ballot for each property. Each ballot is weighted by the monetary amount of the assessment it represents. Tabulation of the returned ballots was conducted after the close of the public hearing by the Del Norte County Elections Office on June 15th, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors chambers, 981 H Street, Crescent City. Members of the public were able to view the tabulation both in person and live via Zoom. Only official ballots signed and marked with the property owner's support or opposition are able to be counted to determine if majority protest exists. A majority protest exists if, excuse me, upon the conclusion of the public hearing, ballots submitted in opposition to the assessment exceed ballots submitted in favor of the assessment. In tabulating the ballots, each ballot is weighted according to the proportional financial obligation of the affected property. If majority protest exists, Crescent Fire Protection District shall not impose the assessment. If there is no majority protest, the assessment may be imposed beginning in fiscal year 2021-22. The unofficial ballot tabulation results from June 15th, 2021 are included in attachment A. The unofficial ballot tabulation result shows a yes ballot value of $72,348.40, or 49.99% yes, and a no ballot value of $72,367.60, or a 50.01% no, with 33% of total ballots being returned from the property owners. The difference between yes and no votes following this count is 0.013% and a value difference of $19. Because of how close the ballot count was and the chance for human error when tabulating the ballots, staff is recommending that the board officially request a ballot recount by the Del Norte County Elections Office. This would be conducted prior to certification of balloting results by the district board at its regularly scheduled meeting on July 12th at 5 p.m. At that meeting, the board shall hear and determine any and all controversies concerning the regularity of the balloting. The determination of the governing body shall be final. If the recount determines that a majority protest does not exist, then the board may conduct a second reading and adopt ordinance number 21-001 on July 12th. The fiscal impact, if approved, this assessment would provide a higher level of fire protection and emergency response service by increasing the staffing levels toward nationally recognized standards and provide for improved apparatus and equipment replacement. The assessment would generate approximately $421,404 beginning in fiscal year 2021-22. Loss of the existing 2006 benefit assessment represents a revenue loss to the district of $110,000 annually. The loss of revenue without replacement funding measure will significantly impact the district in its ability to deliver fire and emergency response, with a lowering of response services from current levels experienced by our community. Further, as the district works to continue to provide services, district reserves that could offset this revenue loss could be depleted as early as the end of 2023, resulting in a significant loss of service to the community. Crescent Fire Protection District Board will have several tough decisions that will have to be made, including reducing the level of service provided by the department should the final certification show that the assessment failed.
Okay, we've had some public comment already. I guess we should go ahead and answer Mr. Gitlin's questions before we take on anyone else. If that's, would you like to answer his questions there, Chief?
Yeah, I can start into this. So the first question about, is this the same tabulation process for the benefit assessment in the spring 21 assessment as compared to the fall 2020? And yes, the fall 2020 also looked at the ballot value given between the yeses and the nos. So it did look at the weight of the financial, or the financial weight based on the benefit units for the properties as a whole. The second question was to try and clarify the cost of the 2020 process versus the 2021 process. And for that, I'm going to add, I do have to ask both Vanessa and Colette for help because I do not have any of the numbers on the desk in front of me right now.
I know for this process, we're not done with all the billing yet, so we won't know the total, but it's going to be right around the $41,000 for this go around. For the previous one, I don't have those numbers right offhand. I don't know, Colette, if you have the numbers.
On the top of my head, I thought it was 105,000
Yeah, that sounds about right.
or 106. It was,
Yeah,
Right around.
there. Which I can look through last year's budget to see what was paid out and get those exact numbers. If you want to email that request out, we can look into that further.
All right, and then if I recall, the third question had to do with returns based tied to 911 dispatching or 911 services. Currently, the fire protection district, the fire department, does not currently do a billing for service for each of like each medical call that we go to. We are working with a company to try for return on insurance for traffic collisions. We haven't had a very good result with that yet to this point. So that is the only place right now to date that we have looked into any kind of a fee for service for response.
Chief, it's Joe. Can we share with the public on what is the percentage that we have collected on that billing for the automobile accidents that we bill? I know the success rate has not been very good, and I think there's a cap of maybe $100 per call.
Yeah, to date, we've been turned down by insurance companies, so we have not seen a return on those. Currently we have more calls pending, but we have not gotten any kind of a return yet on that process for the effort that we've put in submitting.
So the insurance companies are denying it then, more or less?
That's correct. So far on and that, like I say, that's where we've gone so far is we've had a contract tied with traffic collisions and extrications, and then billing back through a company to attempt to collect from insurance companies for auto insurance.
Okay. Is that something, is any other departments elsewhere able to collect on these? Has someone had a success rate for collecting on these kind of calls?
Some have to a degree, like on the traffic collision side. And there are a few that I'm aware of, a few limited, mostly larger departments that have started down the path of 911 billing for medical services. And they have put in place basically a billing division to be able to work with the medical billing, to work with the, through the insurance companies for health insurance. Sacramento City is currently doing it. It was not popular when they started it. I don't know how their returns are, but I do know that they are still doing 911 emergency medical billing, either to the insurance company or to like Medi-Cal. I don't know what their success rate is at this point, though.
Okay.
I would like to also, another comment that Roger Gitlin had made was about a committee should be formed. And I do want to just take it back to the ordinance that has been introduced and would be ratified if the assessment is passed. And in that, the board has included in section 7 of the ordinance an oversight committee. And so this would be a 7-member oversight committee that would be created to meet annually to review and publicly report on the expenditure of revenues generated by the assessment imposed by the ordinance. And the committee would include the fire chief or designee, a representative from the Volunteer Fire Association or designee, and 5 residents of the district. Resident members of the committee will be appointed to 2-year terms by the board chair and confirmed by the district board. And the fire chief and volunteer fire association representative will serve as non-voting members of the committee. So I just wanted to note that there is an oversight committee built into the ongoing review of the assessment and how those expenditures are used.
Do you,
Do you? Please.
Chair Nelson, if I could also, in response with the oversight committee that has been built into the ordinance, it may be also worthwhile should, as we go through the recount process, if we find that at the end of the process that the recount was not successful or on behalf of or in favor of the district, it may be worth the board developing
for a fire alarm disruption as a general.
To be able to, along the same guidelines, to be able to help work with our members of the community, and maybe we can gain some input should we have to go after some sort of a funding direction in the future. So I just put that out there. It's nothing to act on tonight, but just as an idea to put into members' heads.
do you think only one time annually is enough? Shouldn't maybe the committee meet at least twice a year to give us some feedback? I think once a year is not enough.
Chairman Nelson, I would recommend at least twice a year, probably, probably in the beginning to really set the ground rules and get the right individuals on here. And then after that, I believe, to meet every 6 months would be the right thing to do.
I agree.
Chairman Nelson, I want to bring some back to the vehicle insurance that the chief was talking about. I did some work on that both in California and in Oregon, in the fire departments that volunteer and professional fire departments. Their success rate in being reimbursed from the insurance company for motor vehicle accidents was less than 30%. And obviously, the folks that have dependent liabilities and what they have on their vehicle insurances, some paid up to $100, some paid less, some paid none. So it has not been a good process.
And I just wanted to clarify those numbers. So I just looked and it looks like last year the total was $105,034.50. And so far this year spent on the benefit assessment's been $29,067.54.
And Vanessa, just to confirm, the 105,000 last year was for the district alone. Had nothing to do with the city or
Correct.
Measure S.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
just the district's expense. Yes.
Thank you.
So if we're ready to move on, we have another participant with their hand raised, waiting to speak.
Before we move on, there is only one other item I wanted to note from Mr. Gitlin's questions. He also brought up a concern that it sounded like, he may correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like there was concern about a few large property owners with a larger weight controlling, controlling the outcome of the assessment. And so I wanted to clarify that 15 parcels qualify for the $1,000 maximum assessment amount. And of the 5,253 total parcels, 4,732 are single family, either have a 0.8 EBU, which is a mobile home, or a 1.0 EBU, which is a single family residence, which is 90% of the total parcels in the district. And the value for the single family in relation to the total value of parcels is 77%. So I just thought that would help kind of provide a little bit more clarity of, how many parcels we're talking about. 15 qualified for the $1,000 maximum assessment amount. But this district is largely a single family, consists of single family residences, some commercial, and then some of these multifamilies that have a larger weight. And I think we should move on to other comments unless there's questions of directors.
Okay, do we have someone else out there that would like to speak?
So now we have Mr. Thomas Barnes. So we're gonna let him speak now. Which, go ahead, Mr. Barnes, you're able to speak now.
Yeah, it looks like he's unmuted. Looks like he's unmuted.
Yeah, we can't hear you at this time. I don't know.
So there might be something wrong with your audio, Mr. Barnes. Another option I think that could be helpful is there's a chat function or a Q&A function at the bottom. You're welcome to type in your questions or comments, and we can also do it that way. All right, so since it doesn't look like Mr. Barnes can get his audio, we'll try you again here in a few minutes.
So next we have Linda Sutter with her hand raised. So we'll allow her to speak at this time. Okay, Linda, you're able to speak if you'd like to unmute.
Well, Miss Smith. Here we are again. Yeah. I'm really surprised that you're even representing this meeting because it's board members that have to vote on this, not you. So with that said, I am really disgusted about how, once again, You trying to fool the public with your nonsense. You were there the last time, and I heard you and Miss Northup talking, and you were going to tweak the numbers then, and it didn't work. And now here you are again. Miss Northup suddenly finds a yes vote in a pile of no votes. And did she call Roger Gitlin and let him know when she discovered it? No, she waited till the next day. Oh, we found an extra vote. Well, folks, I got bad news for you. You can vote to recount these, but this is going to end up in court because this here is
Linda, we cannot understand a word that you're
failed
saying.
to send out all the ballots to
Ms. Sutter, your audio is very
Voter.
broken.
Number one. Number two, now they're trying to tweak it again for the benefit of this organization, and that's not going to fly either. Okay, so you all get ready. If you've got the money, Mr. Gillespie, if your organization is going to
Ma'am, you're breaking up so bad we can't understand you, so if you can hear me,
What?
you are not coming through properly.
understand.
Take her off and let's go to someone else, and she can come back at a later time and have her system work. It's fine, but right now it's a waste of time.
Okay. So Ms. Sutter, we're gonna take you off at this time because you're so broken we can't hear you. If you're able to connect to a better line, please try to do that. So we have Roger Gitlin on now.
Yes, Vanessa, I'm going to give my cell phone. I'm sitting here with Mr. Barnes now. So I'm going to give him my phone so he can talk because we're having some technical difficulty. Again, these subjects and these technical problems make this an even more difficult challenge to try to get our points across to you. I wish we were face to face. We are not. Here's Mr. Barnes on my cell phone, and here is his, you can listen to him for his 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Roger has passed me his cell phone. I'm assuming that you have audio with me. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm not going to be quite as patronizing as everybody else. Look, this meeting is supposed to be about whether or not you're going to hold, whether you're going to do a recount or whether you're going to accept the unofficial ballot results. And this whole process is confusing at best. I know that I could go through and ask each one of your directors to explain to me the weighting on your voting. And if you got 5 directors, I'd probably get 3 or 4 different answers because nobody really does explain it or understand it. And the reason why they don't is because it's not clear. Number one, it's confusing. And number two, it's not fair. That's the big point. I know that you tried to make it fair, but it is not fair. You just said that 90% of the parcels within the county are single family units. And so that means that the single family units are going to be paying 90% of this burden, this tax. And when you take a look at somebody that might have 150 units on one parcel and you limit them to $1,000, you're basically putting a value of each one of their units at about $6 or $7, which is way out of skew with somebody that's got a home that's worth $350,000. So your whole premise is flawed with the way that you're going about voting. My recommendation is that you go with the unofficial ballot. I was there. I watched the count. It was announced after the count that the tax had failed. Then let me continue on. Then behind closed doors, afterwards, after the public had left that meeting, all of a sudden you find an other ballot, and this ballot now can have a significant impact on an election that was announced to the public, the people that were there, that it had failed. And it was obvious that when that was announced at that meeting, I was there, that the people, the counters, of which you had 4 groups of 2, which is 8 people, everybody in that room was highly disappointed. And the reason why is because they all had a vested interest and they're all county employees. If you go forward with this, at least half of the people, if not more in this community, are going to think that it was a fraudulent election, because you did just what everybody does. You find additional ballots after the votes are counted. Just think about this reasonably and rationally. Does that make any sense that you go through a count, you announce that it didn't pass, and then all of a sudden we find a vote now that's going to count? Also, what about the chain of custody? Who had control of all this information? What about the data entry errors? It was so noisy in the room that the people couldn't hear, and you had one person reading and one person entering. And what about the fact that 200 days ago you had an election, it didn't pass, and so you now bring it up again? Who audits you? Who audits your department? You don't have to answer me that now, but I'm really curious. So here's my recommendation. I know that I'm out of time. Give me about another 30 seconds and I'm done. Go with the unofficial ballot, form a committee that includes the public, because we are the ones that pay for this, and go forward. You've got enough money to go for another 2 years in reserve. You don't have to rush this through. That's what I'm saying. Trust me, if you go to another count and if you pass this, you can anticipate that there will be legal action taken and an injunction sought, because this is not a proper election. It didn't proceed properly. You don't find new votes after you do a tally. It's that simple. I have nothing more to say other than this whole thing. It's really a circus. And think about it. 200 days ago, you tried to pass it and you couldn't pass it. Now you tried to pass it again and it didn't pass, and all of a sudden you find a ballot. You don't think you're going to be subject to a lawsuit? Trust me, you will be. That's all I have to say. Do the right thing and shelve this thing, get a fair evaluation with community members, and then go about it the right way and get the support of the community behind you, instead of trying to force another tax on a community that has been taxed out a long time ago. Thank you. Nothing more to say.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else out there that's got a comment?
It looks like Linda Sutter might have tried to connect it to a different audio, so we'll allow her to finish her time now. Okay, Linda, go ahead and you can try to speak.
Yes, and I expect the full 3 minutes too.
Okay.
Because the technicality isn't on my end, it's on you folks' end. First off, I'd like to say it's past June 15th, and we should be having meetings publicly without this Zoom. Secondly, this is another stunt pulled by our Del Norte County elected register, okay? And Ms. Metz. They tried to tweak it, but last time I was there, I watched them, they dismissed everything, and oh, Lord have mercy, 15 votes changed their mind. Well, first off, you can't change your mind after you've tallied the votes. Okay, you had till 5 o'clock the previous day. Secondly, here we go again. Miss Northrop finds out that, oh, we found an extra yes ballot in the no ballot. And instead of calling Roger Gitlin that day and saying, hey, Roger, I think we got a problem. I found an extra vote. No. She waited till the next day. So that right there shows a little bit of guilt going on here. Okay. And if she couldn't sleep, I guess she shouldn't be able to sleep because she's got a guilty conscience. Now, you folks have spent enough taxpayers' money on this foolishness. And I am in the middle of, I'm going to recall every one of those board members on this fire district because you guys, you have no business. You don't know anything about a budget. You don't know how to contact. You've been duped twice by this company spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, of taxpayers' dollars, trying to get this passed. You vote yes to recount, you better take it out of your own pockets. And if you don't think a lawsuit isn't coming your way, you best think again. Because everything that you could do wrong, you did wrong, and people didn't get their ballots, including the Harbor District, and they weren't allowed to vote because the last time they voted, they all voted a no vote, so they didn't get their ballots this time. But you're gonna try to cheat the people, and everybody's aware of it, and it makes every one of you look bad. So you go ahead. I hope to God you and pray that you vote no, because it's big trouble all the way. Thank you. I got 34 seconds. I yield back.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else?
It doesn't appear that there's anyone else at this time.
Okay. Board
I'm
discussion.
sorry, we have one more. We have Miss Donna Westfall that has her hand raised.
Okay,
So
Donna?
allow her to speak now. Go ahead, Miss Westfall.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, just a few comments. I think it's absolutely despicable to foist this amount of tax on this community just coming out of an economic disaster for the past year. Personally, I don't ever want to see another tax without a sunset clause or with a cost of living built into it. I'm pretty sure there are other options that you have not thought of. This whole tax leaves a very bad taste in my mouth, and if things don't change, I'd like to see the whole lot of you resign. As to those 15 qualified ballots for multifamily properties, are any of those tax exempt properties? And how do you have a fire tax on a property that pays no property taxes? I'd like to know how that works. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You got a question for that? You got an answer for that, Chief?
You know, outside of just to remind that this is public comment where we take comment, but I can say that if it's a property that the county does not send out a tax billing for, those would have to be billed directly outside of the county.
Okay. Anyone else out there that would like to speak? If not, okay, I have a question. Okay, I have a question. Who found that there might be a discrepancy? This was not us itself. This was the county, wasn't it?
No, and Chair Nelson, if we want to close the public comment period, we also have Miss Northrop here with us, and she may be able to shed a little light or to answer some questions for you if the board desires.
Okay. What's the comments of the board?
We would definitely like to hear Ms. Northrop's procedure and policy from the time that the ballots were canceled to the chain of custody and how the process, started and ended.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're in favor of that, so we will turn it over to her.
Hello, so I'm Elisa Northrup, Registrar of Voters for Del Norte County. I was contracted with the Crescent Fire District to collect the ballots and tally the ballots on June 15th. The ballots were held in a safe in my office as they were collected, and they were not opened. No ballots were opened until we were in the public meeting. We had a total of 1,760 ballots collected. 1,734 of those ballots were counted. 26 ballots were deemed not acceptable due to the voter not signing, or the property owner not signing it, and in several, the property owner did not mark yes or no. Those ballots were then opened in public meeting, and they were sorted according to yes, no, and for whatever reason, not acceptable. Once the ballots were opened and sorted, they were then, once there were 2 no stations and 2 yes stations. So everyone at the yes station were entering only the yes ballots. Everyone at the no stations were entering the no ballots. These ballots were opened and sorted by everyone, and it was just not all, there were public members. They were not all county employees doing this, just to be clear. They were sorted, and then the entry started. And so this is all done human beings opening, sorting, and they entered, and we came up with the numbers, and these were unofficial results. And that was when we announced it, being that it was so close. This is unofficial results, but this is what we have of this minute. And as in any time we're dealing with voting, there is a canvassing period after the vote, where when there is a close election like this, any election, the votes are canvassed for mistakes. We started with doors open in the room, going through these ballots. We went through all the yes ballots first. Yes, 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 checking to make sure all were marked, all were signed, all were yeses. It was 5 o'clock. The ballots were locked up and sealed. We came back Wednesday morning and started in again. Like I said, anyone could be there that wanted to. There was always multiple people with the ballots at all times. We started going through the no ballots. We found 1 ballot, and I would like to really, really clarify this. We say found, no ballot was found. There were 17,734 ballots when we left that day, good, and there are 1,734 good ballots today. There is not an extra ballot. No ballot was found. There was a mistake made, a human error. A ballot that was marked yes was placed in the no ballots when they were sorting them. I don't know exactly who did it. The 4 stations were doing it. It was then entered because it was in the no pile. It did not get caught. It was entered with the no ballots. When we were canvassing and going through these, it was discovered there was a yes ballot in the no's. Everyone that was at the meeting that day was immediately notified within 30 minutes. So the information about me sleeping on it all night was not true. It was discovered the next day, and within 30 minutes, everyone that was at the meeting was notified of this. Since the ballots are now sealed with tape and in my storage or in my safe. Do you have any other questions? But I just like it's very clear. We had, like yesterday, when we stopped and announced results, as you can see on the unofficial results, we had 1,734 total ballots cast. today we have 1,734 ballots cast. There's no ballot found. It's not like we found one somewhere. This was one we had tallied, but a mistake was made.
Ms. Northrup, this is Joe Gregorio with the board. I do have a question. When you refer to the ballots were being canvassed, was that county employees, your staff that were going through and not anyone from the public?
Election staff.
The election staff, just to follow your process, correct?
Yes, election staff is only allowed to canvass.
Copy. Thank you.
Question for you, Jim Nelson here. Question for you. Being now there was a mistake, a human error, which could happen to anyone. There might be some question, well, how many more human errors might there be? So if you go ahead and will you officially then go through and run through them again to make sure that there are no other mistakes to give to the
Yes,
public?
I mean, what I could only catch to date were if there were mistakes of sorting or of accepting one that was not signed or something like that. As far as if there was a data entry error, no, I have not checked that because that would require us to recount them. And I have not done any recounting yet. That is up to you to decide.
Okay. Well, I'm quite sure there'll be questions from the people saying, hey, if there was one that got in there, what if there was just the opposite that happened?
Right.
So if we don't, we're gonna get the flack from the people anyway. So I think we'll probably end up having to have a recount.
And Chairman Nelson, this is Joe again. I mean, again, as you said, this could either go away. I mean, it's not a done deal. It could very well, it could very well be more no ballots found than yes ballots. So it's
Yes.
a crapshoot.
Yes, it is. It totally is. So the people can complain all they want, but the majority of the votes of the rule, and if it falls in favor, it falls in favor. If it falls against us, it falls against us. We're big boys, and we are willing to live up to what happens.
Well, I have no vested interest in this. And I just want to let you know, I apologize that this happened, but human error is always in any election. We test before, we canvass after. And, usually it isn't this close where if something did happen, it probably wouldn't affect the final results. But in this case, it was so close. It all came down to one ballot could change everything. One assessment could change the whole deal.
I agree. And just finding one ballot, I think, was pretty good. Probably far better than our president's election.
Yeah, Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, I would consider making a motion to have the office redo the count and stop the public comments at this time. And if we could make a motion, call for a motion and have this, because we pretty much talked it out. So
We have two more people in the audience with their hands raised, so I don't know if we ever officially closed the public commenting period.
another thing, then, if it's a public comment period, it should be a comment, not necessarily us answering to that comment. Okay.
Okay, so right now we have Hank that has his hand raised, so I'm going to allow him to speak at this time. Hank, you are able to unmute yourself and speak now.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Having sat on a bridge, we're currently sitting on a bridge, with this coming up and after now hearing Ms. Northrup's explanation, it sounded to me like that the votes were sorted.
Hank, I'm going to stop you really quick. Your audio is really hard to understand. It sounds like you're on speaker, or it's you're coming in, but it's just really hard to understand.
Something different.
Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Now I can't hear you.
Oh, well, Well, that doesn't work. We can hear you very well, though.
All right, one more time. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I can't really hear you, but anyway, so real quickly, the fact that I heard that the votes were sorted, and then I heard that they were entered, and somebody spent the time to enter them, that's a double check process. And I can say, we like Mr. Nelson, I believe it was Mr. Nelson said that, you know, we can have human error all over the place. And so at what point do we cut it off and say, well, there it is? I'm thinking once the votes were tabulated, entered, sorted, entered, and announced, then, you know, we could just as easily say that the human error gets absorbed on that side of the vote rather than on the taxpayer side of the vote. So that is something you have to weigh. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, we have other hands raised. It looks like we have already allowed the people that have their hands raised to speak. I know that Roger Gitlin had someone else using his audio. So if the board wants to, we can allow to see if he has a comment at this time or if someone else is on his line. But if not, it's just one public comment per person. If we allow for another person to speak a second time, we need to allow for everyone to speak a second time.
No, we can't do that.
Okay, so at this time, we don't have anyone with their hand raised that has not been addressed already.
There is one question in the chat or in the Q&A, and that has to do with the welfare exempted properties. And I think that Donna had asked a question about some of those multifamily that qualify for low income. And there's been questions around that. So just wanted to respond and note that the district did reach out to the assessor's office to ask about low income exempt properties. These properties are still on the taxable properties roll. And this is the response. I have it here in an email. The low income housing exemptions can reduce the taxable value on a property, but it does not exempt the property from receiving any additional fees or benefit assessments that are in addition to the ad valorem taxes. So that's the response. And so again, those properties that do have some sort of tax exempt status, the district isn't aware of that. That's not information that's really provided by the assessor's office. What the district does receive is a list of all taxable parcels that qualify for an assessment, to be charged for an assessment. So I hope that responds to a couple of questions. And I just want to note the only other claim is about the Harbor District not receiving parcel ballots this time after receiving them last time. And I just want to clarify that they did receive ballots this time as well as last time.
Thank you.
Or at least they were mailed to them if they did not receive them
Yes,
because
they
of
were
postal
mailed.
service error. That is not something that was ever brought to our attention.
Correct. They were mailed ballots. They were not removed from the ballots and from the assessment this time around. So thank you for clarifying that, Vanessa.
So at this time, there is no other public comment. There's no other hands raised or comments submitted. So if the board would like to go forward with making a motion to do the recalculation, they can do so at this time.
Yeah, item 4, consider and approve a request for a recount by motion. I think that a motion was made. Dave, did you not make a motion to that order?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Chairman
All in
Nelson,
favor? Yes.
I've got a quick question.
Okay.
with voting for the recount, and as if we all agree for the recount, when the recount takes place, can we just have the county folks do the count, not have anybody from the district present? Is that something we can talk about to kind of keep us and our folks out of it?
I would be in favor of that. I think we need to have somebody else there, an unbiased party, maybe someone from the city that's not involved with the politics of a yay or a nay. They're outside our district, maybe a couple people from, that can be there and watch the procedures and see that everything was gone through properly.
The
Go ahead.
recount will be open to the public, but it will be Elisa Northrup's office that will be doing the recount.
I understand. I just think that, this thing, we spent over 120,000-30,000 on this thing here. Obviously, if it would have passed, they would ask for a recount. We've gone through the same thing. I think it is really important that as we do a recount, it is really important not to have anybody from the district, present there, and allow them to, to do the recount and then go from there. Thank you.
I agree. I think that's a good thought.
I say no one from the district was at the first counting. There was no one from the district there.
Good. Well, I think
I'm just saying
Nor
that I'm
will there
aware
be
of,
with
there was
the
no one there.
recount.
So, Ms. Northrop, so just to clarify, so you're saying that at the first count, we had no firefighters, no one from the district present?
No, during the counting, there were the people counting. Roger Gitlin, Mr. Thomas Barnes was there. Colette from Plan West was there with Jason, because it's it's their program, which is a computer program. But yeah, no one from no firefighters, no one from the district was there at all during the counting.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Well, we by no means are blaming anyone for the miscount. That like I said, human error is with only one vote. If that's the case, it might go the other way around, and we'll find a bad vote in there that we think is a yes, or maybe an improper signature on one. So, the public's all getting the few that are upset about this are getting all upset, and it very well might be that it's not going to pass anyway, even though you found a yes and a no vote. So I think the majority should rule, and the bottom line is, if it passes, it saves us another $40,000-$50,000 to have to go back and do it again of taxpayers' money. We don't like spending taxpayers' money either. We try to conserve and do the best job we can. So let's see what the verdict comes down to with the vote.
I'd just like to say that you be clear, specify if you want a full count, just a hand count, partial hand count. When you're doing a recount, you have to be very specific on what kind of recounts you want.
And it is recommended to the board that after the tabulations have already been entered, that we do a spot check of each one of those tabulations instead of a full recount.
And who's recommending that, Vanessa?
That would be the recommendation from our consultant, and
Well, I think with just one vote off from the human error, I think we should have a complete 100% recount of everything.
I'm with you.
I agree with
a partial count or some sampling is not going to find what we're looking for. We need 100% accuracy, considering all of the problems that we're facing with, potential lawsuits and threats of lawsuits and all of this. I think, it's extra time, but I think it'd be well worth the time to do it.
And that's totally fine.
I
Whatever
agree.
the board all agrees on. Elisa Northrup said she'd be willing to do that. She just needs clear direction from the board.
I don't think we have a choice. I think if we're gonna nip this in the bud and make it official, that it has to be a complete recount to make sure it's correct. Maybe we should have a motion on that.
Yeah, just so we can specify and have it be clear if we can take that
Okay,
motion again with the specification.
Okay,
Do I
I'm
have
gonna make a motion that we have 100% recount of the last election of the vote on this assessment from Alicia's office. Okay?
I second it.
There's a first and a second. Do we have any discussion on that? If not, we're gonna vote. Do you need to take a poll vote on that, or do we, is it just,
I can full vote that now. That's fine.
Okay.
Chairman Nelson,
yes?
Vice Chairman Short,
Yes.
Director Erler,
Yes,
Director Gregorio.
Yes.
Okay, motion is anonymous, and we'll have a full recount. That way there'll be no questions.
With the board's recommendation of having the recount, we would like to go forward with setting a date. So we would like to get direction from the board if a 10-day notice period would be okay with the board, and then we will ask Elisa Northrup's office to conduct the recount after that 10-day notice period has been sent out to the public.
Okay,
Vanessa, I have a question. Is that what is recommended? Is that we have to give 10 days?
It's not required by Prop 218 that is done, but it's just, it's good practice for the board to give the community enough time.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree with that. Is this something we have to take another motion on, or is it just granted that this is the way it's going to be?
Just board direction, if that's okay, we will put out the notice tomorrow, and we will ask Elisa Northrup's office to do the recount on Monday, the 28th.
Super, sounds good. Okay, if no other further discussion on this, we can drop on down to item 4, old business. And at this time, I don't see any old business. Item 5 is board comments. Is there anything that some of the board members might want to put on our next agenda or our next meeting?
Jim, I just want to make a comment. I mean, on my behalf, I want to, to thank for the folks that voted for it. I want to thank the folks that voted no. Also, the folks that have made comments, to the board here. And, it's a tough process, and we'll have to kind of wait and see where it goes. But, the only way this thing is going to be successful is by doing it right.
I agree. It's a democracy, and everyone's got their own feelings and the right to vote the way they want. And there's no hard feelings for anyone that voted against it. I understand it is tough times right now. I'm a property owner, and I own quite a few properties too. So it costs money, but at the same time, this department is something that the community really needs, and we can't afford to cut our services down to the point where it's gonna be a bad thing for our community. So I hope it turns out good, but if it don't, and we'll go on to next year, the year after, and see what else we can do to try to find some money. Okay, no board comments. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay. We're adjourned.
I second.
Okay. Thank you, guys.